Hi, hi.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to another Code Remix Weekly. Here are your usual hosts, me, Sam, and him, Tim. Welcome.
Hi, hi. Good to see you all. It's we're gonna as always take you through some of the things that are new in the past week before we segment into a maybe appropriate topic for the evening of spooky debugging horror stories. But before that, let me first show you a couple quick tabs that I want to take you through. So, in things that are timely for this day, particularly, it is if you want to see Justine present in Montreal tonight, then you need to hurry a bit and sign up for the Code Graveyards Resurrecting Legacy Systems with Open
It,
Rewrite.
yeah, run, don't walk. Your time to get to Montreal is limited if you're
That's,
not already there.
and I did understand it might be a mix of French and English. So if you're fine with that, then definitely do show up. It'd be interesting, I think. So it wouldn't be the first talk I've seen on Open Rewrite in French, which, if you know the subject, is well to do. But yeah, so do check it out if you're in the neighborhood. Should be fun. Then next up is you can see me next week presenting at JFOL. And you can see me present not once, not twice, but 3 times in 24 hours, which should be very, very interesting.
Wait,
If
three
you're not
times
me,
to see you in 24 hours? I was going to
yeah,
joke that, like, you always have 3 conferences upcoming, but I think 3 within a 24. Is that a record for you?
that is a record. It's not a record that I hope to ever beat, but it is a record. Yeah.
Hopefully, there's
So
not a
there's
lot of travel between each one of these.
no. I get to have lunch in between and cross the hallway, so that
Oh,
should be
luxurious,
fine.
yeah.
Ah, so no, there'll be a workshop on getting to know Open Rewrite and Refaster together with my buddy Rick Driver. And then the day after, there's a presentation on generative AI on millions of lines of code. And then there's also going to be the NLJug Innovation Award ceremony, which we are very fortunate to be nominated for. So we made it into the top 3 of
All
most
right.
innovative projects in the Netherlands in the past year. And from there on, we get to present to the wider audience there, and then the audience can vote on which project they think is going to be most innovative for this past year. So really honored to be nominated and go through this process, and we'll be sure to share more with you next week when we learn whether we win or not. So then, also coming up, but on November 13th, so 2 weeks from now, is that you can see Jonathan present at the Miami Java User Group out of Plano, Texas. It is a mug, I think, Java User Group. But there you can see on the state of AI in large-scale automated refactoring. So if you want to check that out, do head that way in 2 weeks from now. And then a little further out, but very exciting, is that we finally have our website up for the Code Remix Summit that we will have in Miami. So if you're in the neighborhood, May 12th to 14th in 2025, then you can see this pretty exciting list of speakers. So of course, we'll be there, but we'll also be joined by some of our friends like Josh Long and Venkat will be there, and of course Emily from IBM, and some more familiar faces if you're in the Java space.
And
And
if
you
you've
can
done
learn
something
all.
really cool with Open Rewriter Modern and you think people might want to know about it, let us know. It's not impossible that a new speaker could be added.
Absolutely. So we have the option to submit your proposal here, and then it will be judged and try to fit it into the schedule if we think that works well. So know that that option is there, and definitely do let us know what you've been doing with Open Rewrite and Modern, and work from there. So that's it in terms of events. And then we also have a couple of new videos out. So if you want to learn more about how to find types with a recipe, then we have a very dedicated video for that. I think Sam, you did the voiceover honors again for this one.
That sounds familiar. I do think I remember doing that.
So that one is up there. It's 2 minutes, and you can learn how you can do these find types. And of course, they're perfect to do a quick impact scan or a quick analysis. You come across an element in your code, and you think, well, how is this being used? How often is this being used? And
Yeah,
then having a
maybe you're
recipe.
tired of seeing like linked list rather than a more inefficient or a more efficient implementation in your code base, and you want to see just how many of these do I have to rip out to be done with this forever. Find types is perfect for that, and many other impact analysis tasks.
Absolutely. So if you want to learn about that, go check out the video. Quick 2 minutes will have you fully caught up to date. And then also new is that we have a video on dependency insights for Gradle and Maven, which similarly allows you to learn about all it is that you have across your organization, and maybe even the elements that you're not quite pleased with. So if you want to know exactly all the various versions and modules of Jackson that you're using, then we have a recipe to help you there. And then also tied to it, there is a visualization that can break that down into all the versions that are in use across your org of Jackson, as you can see here. And
It's worth checking out. I have I don't know but if any of my debugging horror stories today are about dependency management, but I definitely have some if I were to rack my brain about dependency debugging horrors. And there are times where this dependency insight recipe would have helped a lot.
Absolutely. Well, you think you're on a version, but you're maybe not. So you've read the release notes and you know you shouldn't be affected by a bug, and then turns out that in some dark corner of your organization, you're still
have
much
the old
using.
version, yeah.
So get those exploits, get that all cleared out, and then of course have recipes to affect the change that you're after. So that's also up there. Another 3 minutes well spent learning how to use this dependency insight.
Yes.
And then finally, we have a recipe or a video on finding breakages with the find message usages recipe. So if you've been following the show, you'll know that we brought Leanne on, and we can do the step analysis for you on a pull request. But if you don't yet have that wired up, then you can also use those flows and those recipes in the traditional way of using the platform to find method usages and make informed decisions based on what you learn. So all of that is in there. So go check it out. We'll share the links afterwards with our write-up on our blog, on our docs. And with that, I think we are fully caught up on everything that is new this week.
Unless you have something new. It's time to get into our main subject, which is debugging horror stories. Here at Modern, we have experienced software developers from several corners of our fine industry, and all of us have been down in the debugging trenches enough times, as it were, to have encountered some truly horrifying monstrosities and have had to do some complex exorcism rituals in order to get the systems that we have been responsible for out there and working in the waking world again, as it were. And so please join me in welcoming our guests, Peter, Kevin, and Jonathan. These guys are, Peter's a developer here at Modern. Kevin runs the platform team. So anytime we're like clicking on the SaaS, that's up to him. And Jonathan is our newest intern. So welcome, Jonathan, to the program.
Yeah, we're all serial mistake makers.
Oh yeah. It's just a matter of. It's not a matter of if you make mistakes. It's just a matter of when and how you deal with them. So I think I'll get us kicked off with our first debugging horror story, and then we can go to one of you guys. And this one is fairly recent, way back in the ancient days of like 2020. Not that long ago, when we were kind of getting started here at Modern on the Open Rewrite project. One of our very first customers was looking to bring on their large Gradle mono repos into the platform, and a memory leak was killing us. But Sam, you might say, this is Java. Memory leaks aren't a thing. All the pointers are reference counted. You can't malloc if you want to. I mean, you kind of could. Don't come at me with JNI stuff. I know, but we weren't doing any of those things where it would be plausible that a real memory leak would even be possible. So it was like
I have no idea where this is going. I don't remember this event.
Yeah. So it was like being attacked by an honest to God or mythical creature, right? Like a memory leak in the Java ecosystem. But the evidence of its existence was unambiguous and incontrovertible. He could very clearly show that our memory usage was just increasing over time, and it was never going back down. And unless it went back down, we were never getting that mono repo into the system. If we weren't getting the mono repo into the system that had all of the code they cared about, I mean, the other repositories are important too, don't get me wrong, but like, what's a solar system without the sun? It's useless, except maybe for vampires. They would probably really like that. But we didn't want this customer to be overrun by vampires, so I needed to figure out what the deal was with this memory leak. Now, there were a few circumstances here which conspired to make it possible to have a memory leak in these circumstances. So one, we were running a Gradle plugin in this case in order to ask the Gradle build, what's your class path? What's your Java sources? What are all the things we want to parse and run a recipe on? And in that Gradle build, we had wanted to isolate ourselves. Isolate all the open rewrite classes from the rest of Gradle's class path. Like, we use several libraries. The Gradle itself also used things like, Jackson and JGit and some other stuff I don't remember at the moment. So we had created a custom class loader to isolate all of the open rewrite classes and all of our dependencies from the Gradle build that we were running within. One more crucial, so custom class loader, Gradle build. Important thing about Gradle, in order to make repeated invocations of Gradle snappy and responsive and not have to wait for your JVM to start up and warm up every single time, there's the Gradle daemon, which persists between builds. And so this memory leak, I had no idea what this could possibly be going into this. So we started instrumenting it with YourKit. A popular instrumentation framework, really useful. I do recommend it if you have a performance or memory bottleneck. And I started, I'm honestly not an expert at debugging this stuff. I think Knut, who's not on here, is probably our best at using these kinds of tools. But I was able to fumble my way through it enough to find out that where all of our memory was going, between these multiple invocations of rewrite across this Gradle daemon that persisted between builds, was all in the custom class loader. Like, it was our class loader and all of the classes that it loaded that were never ever being freed. And the reason they were never being freed wasn't because of anything we had done intentionally or anything we were even doing, except for when we included that JGit dependency originally, because deep inside of JGit, there was a shutdown hook that was going to wait until the Java process ended to run some little bit of cleanup code. And that shutdown hook was loaded in our custom class loader. So the shutdown hook internally, its class still had a reference to the class loader. So that class loader was never, ever going to go away as long as that shutdown hook existed. So for a long time, the way we slayed this particular zombie was, it's a little bit different now, but the very first thing we did to slay that code zombie was create a version of just that class that did not have the shutdown hook, which so far as I could tell wasn't really needed, at least for how we were using JGit, and then kind of patched that in to rewrite core instead of vanilla JGit. And so shutdown hook away, class loader could get garbage collected, memory leak on the JVM fixed. So that was my brush with a mythical code monster in the Java context. So a confluence of factors conspired there to make possible a problem that is not maybe typically possible.
From a park bench in Seattle.
Yeah, and all from a park bench in Seattle. Yeah, exactly.
Middle of 2020.
Yeah, at that time Jonathan and I were meeting in a park in Seattle to enjoying the lovely summer weather here in Seattle.
That's right.
To hammer out our initial implementation of Maven dependency resolution was happening around that time, and to get the foundations of open rewrite in position for everything we've done since. So I guess, Jonathan, I think by interjecting there, you have volunteered to share the next debugging horror story. So what do you got for us, buddy?
Yeah, I certainly want to go before Peter, because Peter's is the one that I think has the most interest in the end. Not to say yours wasn't interesting, Sam.
All right, best for last. Yeah, Peter.
This is going to be hard to follow, so I was hoping he wouldn't go before
Yeah, let's
was
just
gonna
build them
drop
up so
off.
there's lots of pressure about
Yeah,
how
yeah, yeah, just-
amazing and
you know.
mind-blowing Peter's story is
That's
going to be.
right.
Yeah.
That's right.
That's
I
fine,
just want to
that's
make
fine,
sure to
let's
put as
go.
much pressure on him as possible. Do you remember what that story was, Peter?
Which story? I'm sorry.
Oh yeah,
I have to.
exactly. Yeah, so he's gonna- I don't actually have anything. Yeah, I mean, I've got two, but I think the one that probably most that will be most relatable to folks that are just starting out in their software development journey. So you're telling a sort of later career story, Sam. My very first day on the job, first job out of college at Shelter Insurance, I ran a SQL query against our database, which I had a really bad join in it. And for some reason, I had access to run this query, but not access to cancel the query. Because at that time, if you wanted to cancel a query, you needed to ask a database administrator to do it for you. Unfortunately, the database administrators were all out that day at a local conference for database administrators. So none of them
Man,
were in the
this
office.
is a real Frankenstein's monster situation where
Yeah.
you created this terrible child and unleashed it
Yeah.
upon the world, and
I
were
unleashed it
unable
upon
to
the
call
world.
it back.
Yeah, I unleashed it upon the whole organization pretty much. It basically ground the database to a halt. Nothing that touched a insurance policy in the database, which is pretty much every piece of functionality of the policy
An insurance
administration
company.
system would work. And just realizing, oh no, what have I done? And that everybody else can see who ran that query. And people just started. We were in cubicles at the time. You just saw people standing up and kind of walking out of their cubicles because everybody's work was pretty much just shut down. And I was just like, how to hide it here?
Did they just gradually converge on your desk until
Yes.
you're surrounded by a
Yes.
silent judging
Yes.
circle of
Yes.
all of Shelter's technical staff,
Yes.
and they
Yes.
all raised their fingers and pointed at you and said, "J'accuse." I
Yeah.
imagine.
Luckily,
It's a great way to not have to introduce yourself anymore.
right. Right.
So you're probably
Yeah.
wondering why I've called
Yeah.
you all here today. It's to
Yeah,
announce that I
freaking
am
new
the
guy.
new engineer.
Yeah.
Nice to meet you.
I think what made it worse is that, like, on that first day, I don't know. I was really nervous about like a first time professional job. I wasn't really sure
Yeah.
what the dress code was. So I think I had worn a suit that day, which was just not the thing, right? Like, it was like business casual. And so I was like the guy wearing a suit that like ran the query that just shut down the whole department for a few hours until it naturally terminated. Good start. Really good
Yeah.
start.
Yeah, made a name for yourself that day, I'm sure. Kevin,
I
were you
think
at
it
Shelter
was-
Insurance at this time when this was happening?
I think
He
joined a
started
little
before I
later.
did.
Yeah,
Yeah, he started
yeah.
before I did. So this
Yeah.
I wasn't even born. No, that's not true. I wasn't out of college yet.
Kevin is a very hairy
You
12-year-old.
joined. That's right. You joined the company at 6 months of age. Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I think the good thing there was that people were very supportive. Kind of like, I think the first comment I heard was, if you aren't breaking something, you aren't doing anything.
Yeah,
And that was probably the best message I could hear at that time.
yeah. Well, that was
Kind of
So
set
that
the
was a-
trajectory for your career.
That's right. Let's break something every
Like,
day.
really? Yeah.
Yeah, eventually
That's
we were like,
right.
how breaking just one repository or database at a time isn't
Yeah,
enough.
it's not
I need
enough.
automation to scale
whole
my
department.
impact to thousands or
Yeah.
10,000 repositories. Yeah,
It has to be the whole department.
it's gotta be everything. Now we can maybe break all of open source one day
Yeah.
And then fix it
and then
automatically.
fix it. Yeah,
So what did you do, Kevin?
yeah.
All right.
Kevin.
So I got to figure out how exactly to tell this story. So I worked for a large e-commerce company, and the language that we used in the team I was on, we owned the service that was responsible for serving up the product, basically, like telling, showing the price and returning those things for the product, deciding which of those to go look up in the database and then display on the page. And the language we used to do that was created to be an internal query language of their database, and the database was just like a key value store. It was just like you have a key, and then like some all logic goes to that, and it became Turing complete over a period of years, and it was all deployed through this like mess of pipes and tubes, and to deploy your code to it, you had to get that into a separate key value store database that was created to be the store of the code for the other key value store database. And the language was loosely based on Prolog, I think, like somewhere in between Lisp and Prolog.
God, I love that language.
So the getting changes into production was very strange. You would make your change, write your unit tests, run through what we called, I think they were called consistency tests, where you verify that your change doesn't impact, at least with your launch darkly flags dialed down, does not affect what would be displayed on the page, and that with it dialed up, you have an exact amount that you expect it to change based on, you know, whatever the project's trying to do. Now, the hilarious part of this is I don't even remember what the project was, but I was installing a change. And so installing a change was a full day, mostly waiting, but a full day activity. So you turned it on in the morning, dialed up your feature flag to 1% or 0.1%, because that was enough to know if it was going to have an effect. And so then you watch and see, and there's alarms, and so you don't have to like sit there and stare at it, but to see, does the order rate for this e-commerce website change as your change goes live? And so you dial it up first in East Asia, and then you dial it up in Australia, and then you dial it up in South America and Europe, and then North America at 11 p.m. And all this just happens automatically. And so it's probably about 5 p.m., 6 p.m., somewhere in there. I'm pretty confident that everything's going to go well. I think this was in 2019, so I was still working from the office. And we get a ticket from some team in Japan saying, "Hey, I think there's something. I think there's something going on, but we're not really sure." And they couldn't figure out exactly what was the problem.
What were the impacts of the problem that led them to like notice that something is maybe kind of going on?
So they just noticed a service was getting called about 10% less. And they were like, "Hey, this doesn't usually happen. This service doesn't get called much, and so like getting it called 10% less is already noteworthy." And so we went and looked through, and it turns out that we had brought down an entire method of shopping in Japan for the entire day. Basically, I think 6 hours we had brought it down. And the team that actually owned the service for being able to purchase in that way, which was not through a website or a mobile application, but using your voice, did not know about this. They did not even know it happened. It was a different team in Japan that reached out to us. So we ended up reaching out to them and asked, "Hey, I think we brought down your entire way of shopping." And they're like, "Oh, well, you're going to have to fix that." And the cool thing about this whole process was we were able to get them to one, it made me think maybe that many folks don't shop that way in that region. But it also got that team to add a lot more alerting on their systems to bring it up to the level of all of the other systems, and it also gave our team another leading and lagging indicator to watch during those dial-ups. So that was the scariest, and it was only retrospectively scary because I didn't know that we had brought that down until toward the end of the day.
It could have very easily, would it have affected every country and territory eventually?
Yeah, but we had not dialed up in Europe yet, right? Where apparently this method of shopping was used a lot more than it was in that East Asian region. So your
name really could have been on a memo to the CEO real fast there, huh?
Well, and the fascinating thing is like if you brought down their if there was an order drop in general enough to notice, that immediately shuts down. Like it automatically cancels the dial up for everybody for everything that's happening that day, and then you get to go write how do I say
an
that
incident report?
an incident report, yeah. It's explaining how it happened and how you're going to prevent it from ever happening again. You being the team. Normally, the person who does it writes it because it's a good experience for them to like think about how what they should have done and like what the team should do in the future to support them and other future engineers. And I've taken that with me, past that through my career. I think it's a really useful. It's a really useful process. But it would have been in like an immediate trigger, like the VPs would have been knocking on the door. But because it brought down something that not enough people were using, or not that many people were using, nobody noticed. So it brought so we didn't even have to write that incident report. We had to contribute to it and say what we were going to do to fix that. But the team that we brought down actually ended up having to write the incident report.
Nice.
And a great way to get to learn your colleagues on the other side of the globe.
Right. Yeah, absolutely.
And find the gaps in their monitoring and be helpful and supportive.
Yep.
Yeah. Have you ever traveled to Japan since and said hi to any of those people? I know you enjoy traveling, although maybe more in South America than than in East Asia.
I did go to India after that, but not quite the same. No, I did eventually meet, not in person, but I did eventually meet the person who ran the manager of the team in Japan, and we worked together on that incident.
They were like you. I remember you.
It was really just me, but like from Japan. It was just a version of me from Japan. And it was this incident. It was hilariously enough, it was incidents like this where we couldn't really see how our code was being used that led me to accept the job at Modern. So I remember when I was talking to Jonathan before joining, I was talking about how like he was talking about where we're going with Modern and being able to see where stuff is deployed and like how impacted you are by vulnerabilities. And I was like, I wish we had that right here at this large e-commerce company.
Yeah, because if you can analyze the impact or the potential impact of your changes up front, like how much less stressful would that have been being like, oh, this will take down Japan if I deploy it, rather than this has taken down Japan.
Right. Exactly.
Yeah, if you're curious about setting up impact analysis, at your own company, we have some blog posts about automating impact analysis, where when you issue a new pull request, can run something to detect if there's any breaking changes in it, and then issue a search recipe to find everywhere in your code base where those changed public methods or classes or whatever they are used, so that you could know before you merge that, like, hey, you're going to break these 10 repositories in these 12 places. Yes, and that's there's the link to that blog. I do strongly recommend checking that out. Yeah, and so I was about to call on Peter, but
I forgot to.
Oh yeah, do the spooky underlighting.
Yeah, it has to be nighttime, and then. All right, it was a cold summer day in 2019.
It was a cold summer day.
It was Seattle, so
yeah.
They have those.
Yeah, we do have some cooler summer days here, which is nice, not being totally obliterated by a heat wave. But there's no need for you to take it from me that the weather in Seattle is nice. It's okay for you not to move here. Just think of the rain and the cloudiness and never come. That's kind of Seattle's line. Like that's a stereotype that Seattle is happy to maintain, that the weather is bad. So let's see. So we've had Debugging Horse Version 3 of us. Tim, do you want to share one next? As we have to save Peter's story.
We are
last.
really
so very amazing.
We're just really building it up.
I'm thinking like I've had one incident, but it's not like a big story, but it's one of those where they have the Dutch flower auction, and say that you are working on a team new, which it's the largest flower auction in the world, and you manage to bring down the database in such a way because the docs said that it could create that index in parallel as you remain available. But in practice, no, that's not how things work. So you kind of like, it's nearing the end of summer where news might be slow, and this could have been a page 3 story in the news if you're bringing down the largest flower auction in the world. But luckily enough, there's this one day at the end of summer where the government presents its new plans, and that takes over the first couple pages of the news. So I was very happy to do this on the exact day that I did not make the newspaper.
So my incident, I don't think I would have had anything newspaper worthy, but you actually could have been in the news for that. That would have been something. Or at least if the site went down, even if they didn't like blame you specifically for it.
It's I don't know. It's fortunate timing, and then that's like the most impact I had.
Very good, very good. So wait, how did you fix it? I guess just like after that, you're like, we don't update indexes, during when things are live anymore, kind of thing.
Well, there was a bit of a anticlimactic. Now trying to find out. Oh, I guess we have a support contract, so we're gonna call someone, and then I think we spent 2 hours on hold waiting to get connected to the right person to actually be able to help us out.
If that support contract had like a service level agreement clause, I don't know if a 2 hour wait time might not have maybe run afoul of that.
There was kind of a bit of like waiting music on a loop that we kind of got to know as a team, and then it resolved itself before the person came on the call. So we knew not to rely on that support contract, not to rely on that database, probably re-architecture the things a bit, and be more mindful.
So who this is really a debugging horror story for isn't even you so much as it is that database company that has gone out of business because their product doesn't actually work very well and they don't support it, and they never even knew why their orders were disappearing into the ether.
It's
Now they're ghosts.
And now they're ghosts. They died.
I mean the company, hopefully not the people.
I don't know. They might be zombies or whites or vampires or something. It's hard to say. I haven't seen them recently. Have you?
It's true.
So
All right,
before
Peter.
Peter goes,
Oh yeah, go ahead.
I have one more, and so we're just going to
yeah,
continue to like build up the suspense here.
Oh God.
Yeah, let's hear it.
Oh, I hope this is as good as I remember, Peter. Yeah, poor guy.
If it's not, you're fired. No, just kidding.
The intern can't fire you. Don't worry.
Yeah, that's right. The
That's
intern
right.
can't
That's
fire
right.
you.
That's right. That's right. So there's something about like early experiences at jobs. At some point, I had gone on to Netflix, and one of my first tasks there was to purge Artifactory of all the unused artifacts, which is actually a fairly complicated problem because you can't just purge all artifacts after a certain date. There can be artifacts that are still in use that just haven't been published anytime recently. So you kind of have to build up this effectively dependency tree across the whole artifact repository and try to understand what calls what and what's no longer, and then associate that to what's actually in production versus what isn't in production. And so I had built this whole algorithm up and data set up and heavily unit tested that when an artifact was unreachable, that in fact it would be deleted from the artifact repository. And satisfied that I had was going to fully purge all the artifacts that were unused, I ran that process on the production artifact repository at scale, and it deleted every artifact in the artifact repository.
So job done. All unused artifacts are gone.
Yeah. Task failed successfully.
Did meet the letter of the requirement.
Just didn't write a sufficient number of tests to demonstrate that things that were used were not deleted. There was a
The negative
moment of-
test cases are important, people.
The
You
negative
can't
test
forget
cases
those.
can be very important depending on what you're doing. Moment of kind of horror ensued after, at the time, JFrog was hosting Artifactory for Netflix on their behalf, calling their support team their initial response was, "We have no backups of any of this stuff."
This is
so
a
it's
little bit
just
like
all
Tim's
gone.
experience of like, oh no, this support isn't actually going to help me in my moment of need.
Right. I mean, not that they were supposed to have it. It wasn't part of the agreement or anything. It just, they just didn't. So it was a pretty dour 30 minutes, I would say, before we got a message back from one of them saying they accidentally had backups. But if we didn't act on it in a couple hours, those would be gone. And so somehow they were able to restore that from an earlier point. So I only put, dependency resolution out of service there for a couple, 3 hours probably at the most. But also a bad start there. Also bad start.
And but hey, you could at Netflix, you're just like, hey, the Chaos Monkey is me today.
That's
It's,
right.
don't need some external service
Yeah.
to take things down to test our resiliency.
Yeah.
I've got this one, guys.
Yeah. That repository is going to perform super well, having nothing to serve up. But
Build everything from zero. Well, wouldn't be
Build
the first
everything
time
from
you've had to
zero.
rebuild an entire dependency hierarchy from zero.
yeah, I don't think at that point they even could, because there was code that was just missing, right, from that had gone into some of those artifacts that were used. So it would have been pretty bad. Ultimately, I don't know what we would have done. Peter.
Yeah, what you got for us, Peter?
Yeah, it's time. All right. All right. So actually, I in this story didn't really blow up stuff myself, so I'm going to actually drag someone else through the mud here slightly.
Oh, you're shifting blame at the very beginning.
Yeah. And there's just a little bit of a disclaimer here, but then again, this story is about an intern, and I think it's important to note that the interns are never at fault themselves, right? That's why they're interns.
It's true.
So,
it's true.
Yeah. Okay, so this was back in 2012, plus or minus a year or so. I was working at a company called Sense IT. This company was a startup. I had started here just after finishing my studies of applied science, physics, sorry. And I also had written my thesis at this company. So basically they just said yeah, just stay here and hey ho, let's go. So this company was basically the two founders, Anwar and Wim. Anwar was the technical guy. He also had studied applied physics, same school as me. And he was a really smart guy, and also an MMA fighter. It was a bit later on in the storyline, I guess, but that's.
So in this debugging horror story, if you messed up bad enough, like an MMA fighter might attack you. So those
he was also my boss, right? So
yeah. Physical and economical damage. That's the
MMA
1-2
fighter
punch
might
right
fire
there.
you. Yeah.
I kind of understand why you started working remotely.
So okay, this is Anwar. Then we also had Wim. Wim was the business guy, or the CEO. He had also been interim CEO at previous companies where he also met Anwar. And unrelated to the story, but he had also been a pastor before that, which
so now we're talking physical, economic, and spiritual damage.
Yes,
The stakes on this
exactly,
could not be higher.
No. So that did make for some interesting conversations over lunch, right? So it's a bit of a joke: two physicists and a pastor going to a bar or lunchroom in this case. Anyway, Sense IT. What we did was we used intelligent cameras to do measurements. And this is not smart cameras or AI or anything. It was just a camera with some compute embedded in it, so you could do more than just output images, but actually do some computations on them. And we use those cameras for all sorts of measurements. We scanned ankles to 3D print braces. We tracked people in OR rooms to like determine how far along a surgery was, to do like planning later on with bringing in new patients. Similarly, also in the medical sector, we had a medical instrument counter, like also in the OR room, where a surgeon might want to know if he actually took out all the tweezers of like the guy lying on the table.
Yeah,
This is
yeah,
actually a thing,
really,
right?
you'd really hope that he would. Yeah, but
This is
I've heard
actually
about
a
it.
thing that things stay behind. So something that we did there as well. We did quality control on aluminum casted gearbox housings, and the story is about a paprika robot, paprika or bell pepper. So you might know these, I guess translate would be traffic light packaging of bell peppers. You've seen them before, so it's the 3 different colors of bell peppers with a plastic.
Yeah, red, green, yellow, kind of. Yeah, all together. Yeah, I got
exactly.
you.
So, well, there's the plastic wrap around it, and like depending on how you put in the bell peppers, the plastic can be shorter. Now, this was our goal, right? Reduce the length of plastic needed to wrap 3 bell peppers. And the trick there is to basically make sure that the stems point inwards. And that has the side effect that if like it goes through this wrapping machine, it doesn't get stuck with a stem pointing out. Now, bell peppers come in quite a lot of shapes, really weird ones as well. So like, trying to determine where the stem is isn't so simple. At least not from like a picture. Like humans can do it, but try to turn that into an algorithm to actually determine like a 3-dimensional direction, and that's kind of tricky. So the 3D was an important part here, and we actually used laser triangulation to first make a 3D image of the bell pepper. Now, this was actually something I did during my thesis. So we already had cameras and like all the stuff to like spit out these 3D images to then run our algorithms on. Now, this was basically the point where I stepped away. I was working, I think, on these ankle scanners. Anyway, it was a different project I was working on at that time, and Anwar actually implemented the algorithm determining the direction of the stem, and then also work with.
But copying this algorithm basically right out of your paper, right?
Well, no. So there's the algorithm for like,
or your paper was about like the 3D modeling or the 3D vision.
Yeah, exactly.
And this was another application built on top of that.
Well, yeah. So
I'm just trying to establish the extent to which you were personally culpable for everything that happened.
This is apparently where the intern comes in.
Yeah.
Well, that's
at the critical moment.
A few steps later, yes. I was not in the picture here. No, but Anwar did this whole work, and he used a framework called Halcom, which is like a proprietary like 3D, or it's not just 3D, but an image processing framework where you can very quickly prototype stuff by just like combining some methods and putting in images and getting some choices out of there. So fast forward about 2 months, he had this algorithm working. There was a robot that had like grippers with balloons in them. So it's like this hand, and then a balloon would like inflate and deflate, and that would actually like pick up the bell pepper, so it could like rotate it and place it onto, or actually rotate it in like one direction, and it would be placed on like these circular plates that would go underneath the cameras, and those could then rotate as well. So we could like change the whole orientation of the bell peppers based on the stems.
I love how much engineering goes into the packaging bell peppers.
And
this is just to like save a little bit of plastic, but it's important, right? Because
we're already up to like dozens of sensors and several robots for moving things around. Yeah.
Now, what's important to note here is that like this robot is standing in this warehouse, I guess, where these bell peppers are lying around everywhere. So that needs to be refrigerated, right? So this whole like time that working on this machine, there are like sweaters and jackets on because it's pretty cold. It's like 5 degrees or like refrigerator temperature for like the so he finished basically with the algorithm, and of course we still had to do some testing. And now this was also around the time that this intern came along. So the intern had helped with setting up this robot, doing some testing and some tweaking. And now I guess it was like 1 or 2 days before or after delivering, or having to deliver this robot to the customer. Of course, we were doing this testing at their site, so they were around a lot. But there was this date, of course, where we were planning to hand them the keys and tell them that they could start using it. So 2 days after that date, Anwar was going to go on a vacation. Now, Anwar,
Perfect timing. Yeah.
This is, of course, but Anwar is a super hardworking guy for 11 months in the year. And then he takes a 1 month reset vacation.
Complete disconnect.
Exactly.
Unreachable.
Yeah, not just a little bit of disconnect, but really, he would go out to some try to get off the grid somewhere.
Like you would have to launch a helicopter in a rescue mission to find this man in the wilderness.
We'll get there.
We will. Okay.
So he would go to places like somewhere deep into Russia or
Antarctica.
He hadn't gone to Antarctica by that time yet.
Deep
but he may have.
But would eventually go to
this
Antarctica.
This year he was going to go to the Amazon to actually try to live with indigenous people there.
Okay.
That was his goal. And he did do some
MMA
like preparations.
Fighter, spiritual leader, boss.
No, wait, the spiritual one was the other guy. That was
the other guy. Okay, got you.
Yeah. So basically, he had his trip all planned. Of course, that was planned way before that we actually even had this whole Paprika robot in sight. So, but yeah, the date was a bit close to having to deliver it. But yeah, he wasn't gonna move it. This was his sacred thing, his 1 month reset, and he really needed that. So that was what's gonna happen. And we just had to make sure that everything was finished. And of course, a bit of a miracle, I guess. It was finished. The day before, I had also been called in again a few times, to help out with testing and making sure that everything was working as expected. And we were really happy, and it was working. And we showed it to the customer, and they could start using it. So everyone lived happily ever after, and this was my story. Except it was this one thing that we thought we probably should make some backups of these hard disks in these PCs that are running these calculations, because if something blows up, we want to be able to reproduce this and actually make stuff work. And I mean, Anwar is the only guy that actually knows how everything was working in those algorithms, so we really need these backups if he's on vacation, right? So we delivered the robot. I guess it was a Thursday, and he would go on vacation on a Saturday, something like that. So the week after, he is, of course, somewhere deep into the Amazon, and Wim asks the intern to go out there and make some backups of these hard disks. So he went there, and a few hours later, I get a call from Wim. I was working on these ankle scanners, I guess. And Wim saying something's up with the backup and intern, and I cannot for the life of me remember his name, so I'll just keep calling him intern.
Because he was dead to you at that point.
We'll just call him Peter.
Yes, let's do that. Sure. We'll call him Peter as well. Why not? So Peter did something. This is going to be confusing at some point. But okay.
No, let's use a different name for the intern. It'll be too confusing.
The
Although
intern-
I do like the implication of Jonathan's suggestion that this is
right.
secretly you who did all the
Oh.
intern stuff, and
Need
you're
to
just
secret
trying
him.
to like,
Yeah.
trying to foist the responsibility
be.
off on someone
Yeah.
else. We could call the intern something that won't be confusing at all. We could call him Kevin. How about that?
Ooh,
I was
Colin
thinking we
Kevin.
could call him Jonathan, like our current intern.
Oh,
yeah,
yeah,
that makes
sure.
sense.
Yeah,
That makes
yeah.
sense.
So John.
Yeah.
Okay.
So at this point, I'm clearly comfortable with Blaine.
Yeah, there
that's
you go.
true. That's true. So Jonathan, he was at the site and he was making the backups, and something had gone wrong, and Bim was he was only actually working like 2 days a week at SenseIT, and the rest was still interim CEO at a different company, so he wouldn't be there, and of course he would likely not have been much help anyway. Except for maybe like moral and spiritual support, which is something that he could, of course, have done. Anyway, he called me to see what's up. Now, I already made the disclaimer, but I'm going to do it again. The intern's never at fault, right? So that's why it's an internship. But this intern, Jonathan, made 2 mistakes. So Anwar had already recommended to use Clonezilla, which was like an open source tool to do disk copies, disk imaging.
Mm-hmm.
And there's 2 modes which you can use to make a backup
Copy
of a
drive
disk.
A to drive B, or copy drive B over drive A.
No, there's like make an
Okay.
image.
Uh-huh.
And there is a like sector by sector bitwise copy.
Okay.
Now, on the face of it, they sound kind of similar, right? Except
Uh-huh.
that this bitwise sector by sector copy will actually copy over every sector of the disk. It will go over everything sequentially, and it's actually much heavier on the hardware, especially when you're using hard disk drives, which were still a thing back then. And the second mistake was that he started the backups for both robots at exactly the same time. Now, these I have to like dial back a bit, because these calculations we were doing, like 3D image processing, it's pretty heavy. So we naively
some like caching to disk, maybe.
No. It's
Okay.
nothing like that. No. So this the point was that we naively had just used like office type or actually gaming PCs, because we wanted to have like the heavy CPU kind of thing. So that's what we bought for these things. Those aren't really made for like industrial processes where things vibrate, especially when you have like hard drives, right? So basically, these hard drives had already been running for like a few weeks in this vibrating environment, and that on top, having this bitwise copy had actually destroyed the disks of both machines at the same time, halfway through the backup. So now we had 2 disks that were probably having all the data on it, which were broken, and 2 new disks which were not broken but like half copied over. So I was there. I was thinking like, okay, God, this is not great. We have to do something here. I don't know how to like rebuild
Peppers
this
are
from
not
scratch.
going to be happy.
No.
Yes, because
Gonna waste
like
a lot of plastic.
the customer was gonna like had like a lot of bell peppers coming in again the next day, so they had to like have the robot ready to get running again. So I remember that we at first we tried to like use other tools to see if we could like recover those broken disks to get something to run again, but nothing there worked. Obviously, when a backup fails halfway through, like the new disks are kind of useless, right? At least that was the assumption. So after a few, I guess it was hours of like messing around with those old disks, we thought like let's just plug in the new ones, see what happens. And of course, nothing. But the combination of the new disk and one of those tools to like, I don't know, it was like a check disk kind of application, actually had one of the systems boot up again. So luckily we had one machine that was actually working, and they were two identical copies, right? So I got another new disk. I made an image of the
Not a
working
bitwise
machine,
copy.
not a bitwise copy, and put it on the new machine. And they were both running, except that the second machine was running the image processing really slowly.
Uh-oh.
So this was a bit confusing, of course, and struggled around for another hour or two before I thought like, okay, I don't know what's going on. I don't know what to do here. And we actually had to like break the emergency glass and call Anwar on the satellite phone that he brought into the Amazon. So a minute later, I'm calling up Anwar, and he's telling me about his adventures, and I'm explaining like the situation.
And you're explaining your adventures, yeah.
Exactly, yeah. So we're debugging. We're thinking like what could be causing these two identical machines, one of them to be like slower, and we couldn't figure it out. So Anwar wanted to try and actually like log in and share screen, and but of course he's in the middle of the Amazon, right? So he started talking to people
over a
and,
satellite phone.
does anyone know about an internet connection anywhere close?
And
So
like,
after
what are you
like
talking about, man?
after half an hour of asking around, someone actually said, yeah, there's like this village somewhere like farther up
In that
like,
direction, yeah.
upriver, and they have an internet connection. So he actually paid someone with a speedboat to actually like bring him to this school. The school had a dial-up modem.
Yeah.
So he was doing that, and he was actually like trying to get there and to dial in and actually like get a screen share going. And I was still like sitting there, of course, like watching this second machine not doing what it's supposed to, and I'm looking around and I'm seeing like, hey, we still need to like activate this Windows license on this machine because it was Windows, because Halcon needed that. And then I thought like, calling up Anwar again on this satellite phone. He was like trying to get the internet to actually work at that time. And I'm asking like, hey, how does actually licensing work for Halcon? And he's like, yeah, we have these two keys, and then but I
so
copied
both
it.
machines have the same key after the copying the hard disk drives.
Exactly, and apparently Halcon decided that if you have like, there was some hardware link in the key as well. I think there was like a USB stick there that was linked to the software key. So so you have a file and a USB stick, basically. That's the combination. So apparently they have like this sort of developer mode that if they do not match up, that they just like make things slowly, and that you can still use it. So searching through some emails, found the right file, put it in place, and everything was working again. This was like 10:30 or something in the evening, working all day in this refrigerator, and we finally got it to work again. I high-fived Wim over the phone. Anwar didn't have to actually get the screen sharing going anymore.
Nice.
But he did get a nice ride on the speedboat too.
That sounds fun.
There was no helicopter.
That sounds very heroic, like jumping on a speedboat, racing to render aid.
Yeah. I image him like imagine him standing on like the front of the
standing
speedboat,
on the
like,
prow, like looking ahead. Yeah.
Where is this internet?
Master!
Yeah, I'm picturing a real like Washington crossing the Delaware kind of composition for this painting. I don't know if you guys have ever seen that one. It's a famous painting with George Washington, during the American Revolution, standing on the prow of the boat as they're going across the Delaware River to ambush those dastardly Brits. So like that, but more debugging and less revolutionary warfare, but otherwise exactly the same.
No.
And more Amazon and less the Delaware River. Yeah.
Unless the Delaware, yeah. But other than that, the metaphor is a perfect match. Yeah. That's pretty crazy, Peter. That really covers a whole variety of systems. I think really shows how difficult systems integration can be, because even when you are able to fit like so much of the system of a complex system in your head at once, there's always these details that you're missing. All models are wrong. Some models are useful, and as engineers, we often find out how our personal models of how the system works are wrong under duress. I have some more debugging horror stories, but I think we have shared enough for today. Thank you, Kevin, Peter, and our intern who's already left for joining us and sharing your debugging horror stories. Hopefully, all of you in the audience have enjoyed. And hey, if you have a fun debugging horror story, we love to hear about it. Come tell it to us in the Open Rewrite community Slack. I'd love to hear from you. So yeah, Tim, any closing remarks or final words for us to share, or is that it for today? Everyone go sign up for the Code Remix Summit in 2025. It's going to be fun. We're all going to be there. It'll be a good time.
Absolutely. So do come to meet us there. And then next week I'll be out, but Sam will be here and still filling in while I'm having dinner for the JFall conference session.
Excellent. And I'm going to have a really good and interesting topic, but I don't know what it is yet. But it's going to be great. Let me tell you. Probably be about Lombok support, because I think Lombok support will be finished and checked in by then. So maybe we'll talk more details about how that works and the various benefits you can expect. And now that I've said that, I'm kind of committed to it. So now I have to get it done. So yeah, look forward to that.
It's close to done.
It's pretty close. It's close. Yeah.
Famous last words.
Looking forward to that.
Famous last words. Absolutely true.
So with that, thank you all for watching. Thank you all for joining. And we hope to see you very soon. So, thanks so much.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye-bye.